What if I told you there's one single tool in JavaScript that can hold your shopping list, your favorite songs playlist, your daily to-do task, or even the scores from a basketball game? That tool in JavaScript is what we call an array. And in today's lesson, we're going to explore everything about arrays, from the basics to advanced tricks. So you'll not only understand what they are, but also how to use them effectively in your code. Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe, join as a channel member, and smash that super thanks button if this is content helps you. That way I can keep producing high quality tutorials like this one for you. An array in JavaScript is like a list or a box with compartments where you can store multiple things inside one place. In our previous examples, we spoke about a single variable. So in this scenario, on a single variable where you have a small box where you can only store inside one item, like your name or age, and I would say this is singular, where an array on this pool, which is a bigger container with multiple slots. So those multiple slots can basically hold a different value, which makes it so powerful because it can hold multiple values. Now, in this example, you will see that we are holding multiple objects since array is an object, and now it's corresponding to a list of fruits. So think of this array as a fruit basket holding 3 different fruits. So as we print out on line 3 and also in line 7, as we run this script, you will see that it has printed out multiple values on the second line and a single value on the first line. So for those of you who have not followed along from our previous lessons, at the end of this screen, you can reference on how to set up your developer environment for this JavaScript course. Now, each item in an array sits in a numbered slot called index. So let me paste this example for you. So array is basically zero based. As we print each line of the code and providing the index, then it will print the first object, which is an apple. So in coding practices, the numbering doesn't start with 1, it starts with 0. So from the left, you will have the 0 index, and respectively, it will increase from 1 and so on. Think of it like lockers in a school hallway. The first locker is like labeled 0, the second locker is labeled 1, then the third locker is labeled 2. So in layman's term, the index number is how you say, go to this slot and give me the value of what's inside of that box. JavaScript, unlike other languages, is a dynamic language. That means arrays are not fixed in size. You can add multiple items at any time. So let me continue pasting this example where you could have a mix of type string, type number, and also on type boolean. And as you basically print this array, then it will print the outputs as follows. In many programming languages, arrays must hold only one type, like all numbers, all strings, and so on. In JavaScript, you can store text, numbers, boolean, even objects, all in the same array. You can also see it as key value pairs, where you have the key and then you have the value. So those perspective will last from your beginner career of JavaScript until you become an advanced user. And it's like a flexible shopping bag where you can put groceries, a water bottle, and even your phone inside. And you have that unique label, which is called index in JavaScript, where you could call out the value and be able to print something specific depending on. So array are also objects. Arrays aren't a separate data type. They're actually a special kind of object in JavaScript. And as I add more examples from line 10, like from our previous lesson, we can prove it by using the type of object. So let us change the name of the variable so to remove the conflict from line 1. So let's say this is selected fruits, and we're going to print the type of selected fruits. And as we run the script, it will produce the outcome of an object because an array is a type of object. So, but how do we know it's really an array and not just a plain object? Now, to verify, let us go back to the script menu and do a paste and add our example to verify that our object is an array. So in JavaScript, you have this object type, which has a functionality or a property that verifies that the object is type of array. And I don't want you to worry about methods and functions at this stage, since we will have a full lesson to talk about it. And in programming, it's all about purpose and what it can do for you as an automation tool. And this object is verifying that the variable from line 1 is type of array, and it will return a boolean if it's either true or false. The analogy here that all apples are fruits, but not all fruits are apples. All arrays are objects, but not all objects are arrays. So that may be a confusing statement. So as you remember from our previous lesson, for those of you who haven't watched about my lesson on objects, you can find it at the end of the screen so you can follow along. So as you create objects in your JavaScript journey, which will be heavily utilized into your entire JavaScript career. So objects is a blueprint. So in our previous examples, we were talking about a blueprint like a person. So a person will have a name, a last name, an address, and the purpose of the person object. And most likely you are creating an enrollment form. So the enrollment form or maybe a registration form, depending on what you're trying to automate, are object types. So you can create a object person or type object person and an object of type enrollment. And as you verify those objects and use this verification, if it's type array object, then it will come out as false. So coding is a hands-on type of learning. So I strongly suggest to keep on testing. You get more experience, and as you get more experience, make mistakes. As you break the code, then you get to learn what is working and what is not. And trust me, it will work in your favor, and you will thank yourself in the future on who you are now as a beginner. So since arrays are objects, it comes with different properties unlike what we're showing now. And let us clear the board for clarity. And as we paste this new example, the array will have a property named length. So you can see the framework is already helping us on what this property can do for us. And let us clear or change the name so it will not conflict from the previous example. So as you can see, I'm doing camel casing. So this approach is a best practice in how you basically name the variables inside JavaScript so it will not conflict from out-of-the-box keywords like what we mentioned from our first lesson about JavaScript variables. And as we copy this variable name and replace the fruit so we could get the correct output, and as we run the script, it will produce the length of tree. So meaning when we use the JavaScript or array property, which is length, the counting starts from 1, 2, and so on. And this is different from indexing. I don't like you to get confused. So in indexing is getting the value of the array, while the length is doing a count of how many values is inside of the array. So it's looking at the key. So you have like key which starts from 0. So you have three keys inside of this array. So behind the scenes, as I give you this example, behind the scenes arrays looks like this. And let us put some comments. So basically to remove the popping error because the structure is not correct. So as you basically print out and choosing the key, so you will have the value out of it by calling the index from our previous example and printing out the value. And now the length is basically 3 as you count from the first value of the key, which is 1, 2, and 3. So indexes are just numeric keys of an object. And the length that you call here is the property that is basically tracking the quantity of the keys inside of the array. So we are emphasizing the dot length because you will be utilizing that all throughout your JavaScript career. And it is an important technique that you can utilize as you navigate in thousands of data and getting the correct information so you could be searching for a number of records or student records as an example, and behind the scenes as you get the specific file in the number of file records, then you are basically calling the index and pulling out that specific one record. If you are following along, drop a comment that arrays make sense. It motivates me to keep teaching. And if you want exclusive lessons, consider joining as a member to further support my channel. In real applications, arrays are often holders of objects, like what we created from line 12. This is how you'll see arrays used when working with records, different data sources, to name a few. And in this representation, we are providing two records, and for simplicity, we are just including a name, an age, and as your object grows and in a specific requirement, then you could add more information like an address and so on. And as you can see on this example, we are using the name variable of users because this is a list of users. And by indexing and calling out the object property, then we are printing out the value out of this specific record. So I'll give you more real world use cases. And because my assumption you are already users of the internet, and you must be probably doing a shopping cart in an e-commerce site where you can see a collection of products. And behind the scenes, it will be an array of products or probably a playlist in Spotify equaling to array of songs, a list of students in a classroom app, which is array of objects, a chat message in Messenger equals to an array of conversations. Arrays at the heart of almost every application, and this is what you use on your daily life. So, a recap and key takeaways. Arrays are a store of multiple values in one variable. Values are stored in indexes starting from 0. JavaScript arrays are dynamic. They can grow, shrink, and hold different types. Arrays are objects, so we have proved that by using the type of, but have a special behavior. So we also discuss about important properties like indexes, which acts as keys, and the length is understanding the size of an array. And finally, arrays often hold objects in real applications. So if this tutorial helped you, Smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the super thanks to support the channel. And don't stop here. Check out my full playlist at the end of this screen. You'll learn about variables, constants, objects, and much more step by step that will turn you from a beginner into an expert JavaScript developer. Keep learning because every line of code takes you one step closer to mastering JavaScript.